Figured out I've got an accent, and so what I do on my farm might not necessarily work up here in Michigan, but hopefully it'll take home a few ideas that possibly work for you, or just be inspired to go home and do something different. How many people's going to do something different in 2010 than did in 2009? Yeah, that's good. I'm glad to see a bunch of hands. You know the definition of insanity, don't you? Trying the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. So, you know, I'm always experimenting. I'm going to have to get rid of this jacket. I move around a lot. I don't talk well in jackets. Besides that, they probably want me to show these Pioneer emblems here. I don't know. Anyways, you know, probably the biggest deal is that on my farm, I experiment. I continually experiment every year. Not everything I do works. We fail pretty miserably on a lot of things, but every once in a while we do actually, you know, the old hog does find an acre every now and then. But anyways, as you can tell, I live right there. Most people think I live on this side of the state. In reality, I live on the opposite side of the state. Right there is Branson. How many people's ever been to Branson? I'm sorry. The only thing in Branson is hills, trees, rocks, and hollers. So if you don't know what a holler is, that's kind of the hill, the low part there. So I was in the Dakotas here a couple of weeks ago, and they asked me what a holler was. And I said, well, you know, that's kind of the valley right there. Bottom of that hill, you holler, and that goes back to you, so you call it a holler. We raise about 3,000 acres of green beans, and that's kind of where I basically learned how to pay close attention to detail, and I've taken what I've learned from our green beans and our vegetable crops, all our specialties, and went and applied it to our normal production acres. So basically what I'm trying to say is if you want a crash course in how to pay close attention to detail, get in the vegetable business. So, you know, I often tell that, you know what's worse than finding a mouse and a load of spinach? Have any idea? Finding a half mouse and a load of spinach. Because you know what? You don't know where the other half's at. They're automatically going to dump that load of spinach. Because Mom don't want to open up that can of spinach and find a mouse head sticking up right there. Because guess what? They don't buy Popeye spinach anymore. So, and that's an honest, true story. I've had loads of spinach dumped for that. But anyways, we don't ever let our weeds get very big because the way we take them out of it, we raise a lot of collards and kale and mustard and turnip greens. And I haven't seen any of that on the menus up here, but they eat those down in the south. But they keep it regular. You know, the thing about it is you know how you control the weeds in there? You get a big group of workers. We have a lot of Hispanics, Mexicans that work for us, and all the weeds out there is all controlled with hose. So if you have about 500 acres of those, that's how we control the weeds. And once the spinach or the greens get up here about this tall, every weed that you hoe out is carried out of the field in its toe sack. So we're pretty big on keeping our weeds out of our fields, so we don't like anything that ever goes seeds. Raised a lot of Italian flat beans, as you can tell, they pearl, lay flat on the ground. We get a lot of disease pressure. Like I said, we've been using fungicides for about 25 years. So for me to use fungicides on our normal production acres is no real big step. We just basically moved right into it. That's not a light reflection. That's actually the color of our soil. It's called Natonia red. It's a silt loam. Best thing about it for contest is that it warms up very nice in spring and dries out very nice in spring. But everything that's great in the spring comes back and haunts you in the middle of the summer because it dries out and it does get hot. So we have all of our red ground is all irrigated. We have about 1,800 to 2,000 acres of this, and it's all irrigated. We have no tile anywhere. All our soil percolates very well. Our topsoil is about 14 to 18 inches deep, but there's not a lot of difference between our A horizon and our B horizon. If you dug a root pit down 12 foot deep, it'd be red from top to bottom. The only way that can be red is it does percolate really well, so that's the reason we don't have to have a tile. We run a monosim twin row planter on all of our contest acres. All of our normal production acres, we run 24 row central fill planters like everybody else. We also have a 15-inch planter we plant soybeans with. I really dislike grain drills. I refer to grain drills as no more than a semi-controlled spill. The problem with the drill is they're fluted. They dump them out in piles. You can't control the depth. And if we want to raise high-yield soybeans, we've got to plant it just like corn, with equal distance spacing. the bam, bam, bam effect. So basically, in a nutshell, what you got to have happen is when the first one emerges, you want all its brothers and sisters to merge in a 72-hour window, because anything that merges past 72 hours is no more than a weed. It's not going to put an ear on, it's not going to set pods. So planting is really, really crucial on this. I'm asked a lot of times, how fast do we plant our corn? And I said, well, we set our planters where they work the best they can at 6 miles an hour, because I have a lot of hired help. And I'm not stupid. I know when I leave the field, they're going to drive 6 miles an hour, so you might as well set the planters where work the best there. So that's the way we do our planters. And most of these high back planters do need to be drove over 4.5 miles an hour. You know, I've heard guys talk, say they want to plant 3 miles an hour. Well, if they're running a high back planter, their double eliminators are actually not working properly. That's just some small twin row corn. The monostem planter here, once you set it, it's going to drop every seed exactly like that. It has no choice. All the slip clutches are all welded, so it's going to drop all the seed like that. But once we time it, it's going to put in that V pattern. There's about 56, 58 different varieties behind me there. This is the easiest thing everybody can do. Make sure you got the right genetics on your farm. I test everybody's genetics. I want to make sure I got the right genetics on my farm. I want to make sure I got the right hybrid on every acre. And I can guarantee in southwest Missouri, Pioneer is the highest yielding genetics. If they wasn't, I wouldn't be planting. So, I do test everybody's genetics, because I'm always accused, we don't plant anything but Pioneer. Well, no, I don't. But the reason is because they're the highest yielding. This is just one of my wild experiments that kind of get your head thinking how my crazy brain's always working. I'm always trying to dream up some new idea. How can I push that yield? So I was talking to Steve Patrick. Steve's a research scientist in Johnston. And I said, Steve, is there any way we can influence that ear girth from, say, V2 or V4 to V6? He said, well, possibly reflect light back up the ground. Maybe we could. So I went to my wife's kitchen cabinet. I swiped her 10 volt, went and laid on the ground, and it worked. We added 2 to 4 rows on every ear. I'm still testing. I haven't figured out the 100-acre method yet, but it did work. That's 35F40. We plant this in early corn early. That's a final stand about 48,000. I love this picture. That's a pivot track right there. I'll give anybody a dollar if you can find a light speck on the ground. 0 light is hitting the ground. We're capturing 100% of the sunlight. I hate wasting energy. So I push the plant population to max. They don't have them agronomy books out, which I'll talk a little more about plant population in a little bit. But that's that same 35F40. I like a dark green plant. That's 31N28. We grew this corn in 05. Made about 350 bushels. Final stand about 56,000. My favorite part of this picture is every ear is tipped back 1 inch. That's twin row. You can't actually see the other row ears there. They're kind of buried in there. But you know why that's my favorite part with every ear tipped back 1 inch?
Planet thickening.
Planet thickening. Because in 2008, we had 35F40, dry land, no-till, non-irrigated, made 322 bushels acre, and I was sick. I had no idea what I could have made. Every ear was rounded over. Final stand about 36,000. It don't matter what company it is, they are selecting these hybrids today out of a 32 to 36,000 final plant stand. Point being is this, is if you're planting 24,000, the problem with that is, it was killed 5 years before it could ever become a commercialized number. Because it couldn't compete against the 32 or 36,000. So do on-farm plant population studies. Figure out what the ideal plant population is for your farm. I know what it is on my farm. Every time we get a new hybrid, we go test it to see where we need to be. And if you had those agronomy information books, it tells you basically what you should be. Or go to growing points and you punch in the hybrid, the price of corn, and it tells you what the ideal plant population is, the most economic place it is to plant those particular hybrids. So I encourage everybody to go to growing points. I write for growing points. I'm sure some of you guys have probably read some of the stuff that we do on growing points.